and welcome to Steph Time. My name is Stephanie and today I invite you to sew with me these trousers. These are the Chandler Trousers by Untitled Thoughts. They come with two different front options. I went with the pleated option. They have a dart option as well. And they also come with a shorts option, which I will definitely be making this summer because they are so comfortable. It has an elasticated back waistband and the instructions are very clear, concise, and I sewed them up in about a day. So if you're interested in making these trousers, please keep on watching. And if you're new here, welcome. If you want to stick around, make sure to subscribe. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a big old thumbs up. All right. Without further ado, let's jump into the pants. All right, to start out, I am taking my printed pattern and I'm tracing all of the pieces that I need in the size that I'm making onto tracing paper. This makes it so that my original pattern is still intact if I need to make a different size or grade in between sizes in the future. Next, I'm cutting out the legs of the pants and I am cutting them out on the fold on 2 layers so I can make sure that they are exact mirrors of each other. Next, I'm looking at the pocket pattern pieces and trying to mark on them some indications of how to line up the pattern on the fabric when I go to cut out that piece. And now I'm cutting out that pocket piece and then I'm using that piece I cut out to just lay on top of the fabric and cut out another mirrored image of it. Next, I've got some fusible interfacing for the waistband and the pocket openings. All right, I have just interfaced the front facing or the front waistband facing as well as the pocket openings on the front legs. I'm gonna go ahead and stay stitch the places that are indicated in the pattern and then we can start sewing. So stay stitching is just placing a straight stitch very close to the edge of certain areas of garments to make sure that they don't stretch while you're assembling. It's usually done on curves or on the bias. All right, next we are going to go ahead and gather our darts on the front pocket or front pant leg pieces. That's what it'll look like. So at the markings provided in the pattern, I'm marking 2 inches down with some Tailor soap to indicate how far down I should be sewing for the pleats. I'm then pinning that together and then we're going to take that to the machine. All right, it is time to assemble the pockets. We're gonna take the pocket pieces and we've completed the darts. I went for the darted version. Oh, not darts, sorry, pleats. I went for the pleated version. I've done my pleats and I'm going to lay right sides together, the pocket lining with the front of the leg. Let me show you. So we're gonna sew along here and then we're gonna flip it inside out. So that's the front inside of the pocket. The inside of the pocket will meet up with the center of the pants so that it's not a loose pocket. It has structure throughout so that it doesn't get all twisted and whatever. We've sewn our pocket facing to the front of our pant leg, so we're going to turn it inside out. So the back of the pocket on there, it'll kind of hang out here, will be the rest of the front pant leg, as well as being the other side of our pocket. So yeah, I'm going to do that to the other leg. First, I'm going to trim down these seam allowance, any bulkiness, and then we're going to understitch and move on. Makes it so that the fabric will go to this side inside the pocket rather than flipping out towards the outside of the garment. I have the pocket lining here and the pocket that I'm going to put on the other side. This is what it'll look like from the front. But instead of finishing the seams with a serger around the edge, I was kind of looking for a nicer seam option. So instead of sewing this right sides together, I'm actually going to sew it wrong sides together by turning the pocket out, sewing it this way with a scant seam allowance, and then trimming that down, turning it inside out, and finishing with a French seam by encasing that raw edge in the seam allowance, sewing it the right sides together. Alright, so I have done a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on this. I'm going to trim it down and then flip it inside out and then sew it again at a 1/4 of an inch to meet our 1/2 an inch seam allowance. It's going to be really bright on my face, but I want you guys to see the fabric and it's kind of hard to see. I finished the pockets with a French seam, and I've basted the pockets to the outside to the rest of the leg so that it's staying in place while we assemble. And we are going to pin all the way around, sew all the way around, and then finish our seams. However we choose. I'll probably do my serger for this just because it's easiest. I marked center front, and that's going to catch the edge of this pocket as well as the pocket on the back. And we're going to sew down all the way and then around the crotch curve right here. Here's what the front of my pants look like. I have created the front center seam, and I did choose the faux fly option, which means that I have like kind of a fake fly piece here, and we're just gonna top stitch it from the front to make it look like it has a fly and a zipper, even though it doesn't. So at the back here, I have ironed the faux fly over this side, and now I'm gonna use faux fly guide. I'm gonna put this on top here so I can just top stitch down. Another option is to do a basting stitch on the back all the way down and across, and then flip it over and use top stitching and then take out the basting threads. So I'm gonna go ahead and top stitch this fly down and then we can move on. Change of plans. If I fold it over and stitch it down, I'll be stitching on top of a pleat. I don't know if I want that, so I may just cut this whole piece off. I don't know. I made my decision. I'm not gonna fold it over and stitch it down. I'm just going to use my serger to like cut it off. I'm eating a Toblerone, but I'm going to iron this seam allowance to the left and top stitch it 2 lines of top stitching on the front all the way to the bottom of the crotch. Alright, we're starting with our front waistband, which I have put some interfacing in or onto already. I use some pretty stiff interfacing just because I typically use thin interfacing on pants and it's usually never stiff enough. I did that with the Chandler Trousers that I did a video about. Basically the fusible interfacing I used was just so thin that it didn't hold its structure at my waist, which is what I want. I want some structure at my waist. So now I'm gonna finish the bottom edge. I'm just gonna use my serger, and then we're gonna attach this to the front piece. So the 2 legs we just connected, we're gonna attach the waistband at the front. Because I use such thick interfacing, I do have quite a bit of bulkiness at center front and where the pockets are sewn in. So I'm just trying to really like give that some weight. So it'll lay nice and flat. All right, now we are going to tackle the back of the trousers. This paper's so loud. But anyways, I've got my pieces here. I've transferred all of the notches onto my pattern pieces by snipping into the seam allowance just a little bit. And now I'm going to remove the paper and the pins, and I'm going to sew the crotch seam together and then move on. So just like the front legs, I folded and ironed down that seam allowance, and now I'm top stitching the seam allowance down all the way to the bottom of the crotch, doing 2 parallel stitches here. All right, for the back waistband facing, we are ironing down a 1/2 inch, kind of like hem, so that when we attach it to the back legs and sew it down, we will flip it over and then sew that down again, like 2 inches down, to create like an elastic tunnel for us to thread our elastic through to make our back waistband. And of course, we are also going to braid that seam. Flip it on over, and then we're going to understitch the back waistband so that it stays on the inside of the pants. So now that we've turned the back pants waistband over, we iron down a 1/2 inch on the end of this, so that when we fold it over, we already have kind of a built-in hem going on. So I'm going to stitch this 2 inches away from the edge to make an elastic casing, and then we're going to thread our elastic through. Okay, so this pattern requires 1.5 inch elastic, and I only have 1 inch or 2 inch. So I'm gonna do a little test here and see if I can use my serger to serge a little bit off of this. I wanna make sure it maintains its stretch and isn't gonna unravel. So I'm gonna do my little test here. Stitch width to like as tight as it'll go. Let's see how it goes. Okay, it's not perfect. I think we're gonna go for it. So I've got my elastic here that I've cut to the length suggested in the instructions. I'm just gonna like cut a little bit off. I'm going to use my loop turner to go through the little tunnel that we made and pull our elastic through by clipping it onto there. Alright, I have pulled the elastic through. I'm going to baste it down to one end, probably where I put the safety pin. And then we're going to leave the other side open. And this is so that when we assemble the pants, we still have a chance to adjust the elastic to see if it fits correctly. Alright, now we're going to attach our front and back pieces together. I've connected the front and back of the pants, as you can see here. And I have pinned the entire crotch seam all the way down to the hem. And I'm now going to sew this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. And then we're going to finish it with the serger. Always make sure to check what your seam looks like on both sides and from the outside before you move on, because I kind of got a little like here that now I'm seam ripping out, and then I'm just gonna restitch the actual crotch area to make sure it's good. But always check, and this is evidence that it's bound to happen on a project. I've sewn the inseam and I've serged it as well, so the seams are all nice and finished. Now what we're going to do is pin the side seams. So how we're gonna do that is we're gonna keep the front waistband out of the way, and then we're going to pin the sides together, making sure that's up and out of the way. We're going to pin it on both sides, but we're going to leave this little gap open to keep the elastic open so that we can try it on and tighten it or loosen it to see how it's fitting. Okay, I'm trying on the pants for the first time. It's a little bit dark in here, but as you can see, they fit pretty well. I pulled the elastic at the waistband to where they kind of felt comfortable. I don't want these to be like super duper tight or anything. I just want them to fit well, and I don't want to make it too tight in the elastic because I don't want them to have difficulty getting over my hips when I put them on. I also did a little cuff at the bottom to kind of see what length I'd like. So that's what they're looking like. Now I'm going to take them off and close this up and hem them, and I will be done. Alright, so I've basted the elastic to, since I measured it to myself, to the back piece. And now to encase everything, we're gonna line this up. I did not sew this yet together, but I'm lining this up, and then I'm flipping the front facing over that. And then we're gonna pin it in place and sew together at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then we're gonna trim, flip it inside out, and then it's gonna be beautiful. Oh, I didn't pin it because I'm a bad girl. And you can't tell me what to do. Hopefully it doesn't screw me up. Trim the corners, flip it right side out, and iron it down. Oh my goodness, that looks so nice. Now we've got an entirely encased waistband. Love it. All right. Alright, now I am adding belt loops at the center back, the side seams, and in between the pleats on the front. And I'm tacking that down using a straight stitch and just back stitching a few times. Alright, literally all that's left is to hem our pants. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you had fun. This was a toile, basically. This fabric that I used was secondhand, and I had a lot of it, so I knew that I would just feel comfortable going into cutting it rather than using a toiling fabric. However, that being said, now that I have made it, I would definitely increase the rise by about 1 inch so that they fit me a little bit better through the crotch area, and then actually come up to my waist at a kind of comfortable area with some looseness down here. If your waist to hip ratio is like around or more than 10 inches, you might want to add a side zip or a front zip. There are a bunch of hacks online for both of those things. Untitled Thoughts includes a bunch of hacks for you guys if you're wanting to make this pattern. Please go and check her out. She also has a YouTube channel. I will link all of this information down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. And in the meantime, keep it cool. Bye guys.